This regular meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 7 p.m. I'm very pleased that you've taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. As our guest, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically, should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We've established a quorum, and I will call roll. Mr. LaFoyle.
Present. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Macias.
Present and welcome.
Sorry, Ms. Kenoyer. Ms. Kenoyer.
Present. Good evening.
Ms. Pichelle.
Present. Good evening.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Present. Welcome.
And Ms. Eaton.
Present and so happy to be back. Yay!
And I'm Melinda Salinas, and to my left, we have our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carl Montoya.
Present.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, folks, if you'll please stand for an invocation. Before I do the invocation, hopefully nobody's going out this door because there's a hornet's nest right outside. So you got to go through the other door. With that being said, please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for getting us to this point every day. Everything that we do, we keep you in our mind and hearts, and we thank you for all the support that you give us. We thank you for the support that you give our staff in our school district, whether they be administrators, teachers, support staff, bus drivers, custodians, secretaries, all of the support staff. We thank you for them being here and for the help that you give them to help us run our district safely and successfully. We thank you also for our students, because that's why we're here. And we thank you for that support, that you take care of them, and that this evening everyone go home safely. Again, we say that in your name. Amen. Amen.
I'd like to introduce you this evening, our pledge leader for this evening. It is Naomi Mata. Naomi, come on up here to the microphone, if you would. Naomi is a fifth grader from Crestview Elementary, the school she has attended since she was in pre-K. While at Crestview, she has been a big part of the music program. She loves choir and is in the honor choir, instrument ensemble, and music memory programs. She has been on the A honor roll all year this year, and outside of school, Naomi enjoys dancing, especially tap and ballet. Let's join her in the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flags.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas pledge. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
may be seated. And let's give Naomi a hand for a nice job. And I believe Naomi's family is here. Would you stand or raise your hand? There we go. Thank you. Sir. I'd also like to recognize our color guard for this evening, coming from Wagner High School Junior ROTC, Cadet Captain Andrew Nuncio, Cadet Private Sienna Rios, Cadet First Sergeant Desivity Olaka, and Cadet Sergeant First Class Shamari Washington. Well, our first board recognition comes from Veterans Memorial High School. If you haven't heard, it has been an awesome year for girls basketball this season at Judson ISD. The two high school girls basketball teams from our district made it to the state tournament and to the state final in 2 UIL classifications. Here this evening is the Veterans Memorial High School Patriot girls basketball team that went 33-10 this season and went all the way to the final game in its first year as a varsity program, second year in existence. The team is here, and I want to introduce you to them. Not all may be here, but I'll name all of them so you will know who they are. Junior guard Charlene Matz, junior power forward Ariana Aguirre, sophomore forward Cyan Matz, sophomore point guard Vivian Castro, sophomore guard Caitlin Bassett, sophomore forward Brenna Perez, junior guard Hannah Cole, freshman forward Marley Rokas, sophomore forward Sahara Jones, and sophomore forward Denise Allen. The coaches are Melissa Martinez, Antonio Keys, student managers Amari Rogers, trainers Sam Lawson and Donna Tuggle, and of course the head coach is the Express News Girls Basketball Coach of the Year, Christina Camacho. By the way, Coach, as you may know that she's been successful wherever she's worked, going 6-28 and 235 overall in her 31 seasons of coaching. And will the parents that came here as well, the parents of these students, can you stand or raise your hand or something so we can recognize you? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good job, girls.
Now, our next recognition comes from Judson High School. As you know, the district CTE program is strong and diverse in its certifications, and recently the Judson Collision Repair Program received national recognition and a grant. The ICAR Foundation is a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to support educational efforts in the skill of collision repair to produce students with the expertise needed to work in professional shops and maintain a high level of quality work. The organization awarded the Hertz Grant to the Judson Automotive Collision Repair Program. So congratulations to the school and the program's teacher, Mr. Ken Tucker. And here to award the check is Ms. Renee Lafreniere, who's the director of CTE in Judson ISD. We're with Hertz. Okay. Are you Jennifer? I'm Jennifer. Okay. Okay. Jennifer Adkins and Melanie Howard are here with the Hertz Corporation, who were a big part of this particular grant as well. I will tell you that we'll probably have Mr. Tucker back next month as his students and his auto collision team went to state and brought back some pretty impressive hardware as well. So we'll look forward to that. Now, our next recognition also comes from Veterans Memorial High School. The school's chapter of the Business Professionals of America recently came away from the BPA Regional and State Conference with a number of honors. Their hard work is showing up in a number of different categories, and these students competed in the state contest earlier in the year in Corpus Christi. Now, I'm not sure how many of them are here this evening. We have one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and name off the students, and so you'll know who they are. Again, Logan Bayer, Basic Office Systems and Procedures. Zaire Brown, Fundamental Accounting. Ruben Caro, Fundamental Word Processing. Sharon Choi, Economic Research Project Individual and Administrative Support Team. Karen De La Torre, Prepared Speech and Administrative Support Team. Sabrina Lagramanta, Legal Office Procedures and Administrative Support Team. And Sandra Straughter, Administrative Support Team. And is your family here this evening? Because you, right back in the back. Thank you. All right, our next recognition comes from the Judson ISD Transportation Department. The property... You got a lot of supporters here this evening. That's good to see. The Property Casualty Alliance of Texas provides districts with a strategy to lower their risk of property and casualty loss. It's the largest such program in the country. Each year they select those individuals who go beyond the typical in transporting our district's most precious cargo, our students, to and from school. The selection is based on 5 criteria: leadership, attitude, perseverance, student and parent relationships, and technical skill. The PCAT Bus Driver of the Year, district-wise, regional, and actually also qualifying for state, is Judson ISD's Panfelita Hernandez. So Ken Johnson is the Director of Transportation.
She gets a jacket, but there's also a check in here from also.
Right. So congratulations and many safe miles to you. Our next recognition, beginning in May of last year, Judson ISD began participating in CPS Energy's Resource Management Services program. It focused on saving energy through behavior and operations in the district. And one of the main goals of the program is to raise awareness, and we ask students throughout the district to design posters to encourage awareness. And we received a wonderful number of great entries, but only one winner from elementary, middle, and high school could be chosen. And the winners are here this evening. I do believe all the winners are here. And so we have the Energy Management Department here to award these awards. First of all, at the elementary level, Ian Washington from Ed Franz Elementary School. I might also add that Ashley Williams, Joe Jones, and Jennifer Enriquez are here with CPS Energy. At the middle school level, Trinity Gerald from Metzger Middle School. And at the high school level, Emily Orozco from Judson Early College Academy. Is she here? I don't believe she's here. Okay. So thank you all to the students that participated in this, and as I believe, this is going to be included in some of the promotional artwork for the company over the next several months. Okay, and our final recognition comes from the Communications Department, which makes it kind of awkward here, but we'll go with it. Each year, the Texas School Public Relations Association selects publications that it feels reaches the highest level of quality compared to the other districts across the state, and those are announced at its annual conference in February. This year, the association selected the Judson Post as the Best of Category Award among similar-sized district newsletter publications for content, layout, and overall quality. More than 1,300 entries from school districts across the state. The department also picked up 9 gold, 3 silver, and 2 bronze selections for work in photography, video, and advertisement projects. And those come from as a result of a team effort from multimedia specialist David Rhodes, who typically takes photos for these kinds of awards. Myself and Lexi Greathouse, who is right down here. Lexi has an awful lot to do with the advertisement content as well. So I'm not sure who's going to take the picture here. And those are the recognitions for the evening.
will proceed to item 3, acknowledgement of visitors and citizens to be heard. This time is provided for citizens to address the board on issues or concerns. A person may speak for one time for a period of 3 minutes. Presentation shall be informative only. No board action shall be taken. A complaint or charge against an officer or employee of the district is not allowed in open session. Complaints and concerns should first be addressed by campus and/or district administration. If your topic involves a personnel matter, a student matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated or board policy not followed, we have specific grievance procedures, DGBA legal and local for these matters, and now is not the appropriate time to discuss these matters. We respectfully ask that you refrain from making personal attacks or rude or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous. The presiding officer shall determine whether a person who wishes to address the board has attempted to solve a matter administratively. If not, the person shall be directed to the appropriate policy to seek resolution before bringing the matter to the board at a subsequent meeting. Citizens wishing to receive a response from concerns presented to the board must provide written documentation. The board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. And first we have Curtis Reuter, and the agenda item is continuation of IB program at Judson.
Good evening, and I just want to thank each of you for the service that you provide to our community and to our children. My name is Curtis Reuter, and the last time I spoke to the Judson School Board was almost 28 years ago, when I was among the very first IB diploma recipients in the International Baccalaureate program. I was in that very first class. And the reason I'm here tonight is because I hope that my daughter Katie is not in the very last class of the IB students. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Meals on Wheels San Antonio in my professional life. And in that role, I know that you have incredibly difficult decisions to make. We have so many more services than we have dollars. And so I do not envy you the choices that you need to make. But when I graduated with the IB diploma in 1990, I was able to use that to get 42 hours of credit at Trinity University, which was in effect almost 3 full semesters of credit, and was able to dive right in. My very first class on 8:30 on Monday morning was multivariable calculus. And the only reason that my advisor allowed me to take it was that there was Calculus 1 going on at the same time, and he figured within a couple of weeks I'd chicken out and move back down, but I never had to. Because if you survived Shirley Canothi's class at Judson High School, you had no problem in a class full of sophomore and junior mathematics majors. There are approximately 30 children, students in the IB program, and these guys decorate your campus. They are, not only do they make for the most dynamic classrooms in your school, but they're in the band, they're in the choir, they're in the orchestra, they're on the sports teams, they're on the newspaper staff. They're doing great things, and all of those things are better because of those students in the IB program. And if that's true of the students, it's even more true of the faculty. This is a program that attracts faculty members that want to be challenged by their students, and they really create this symbiotic relationship of each driving each other forward. And it really is remarkable to get to see it again from a totally different perspective almost 30 years later. So the thing that I would emphasize to each of you about that is these are the best teachers and the best students, and that means that they have the most choices. And closing this program would create an incentive for lots of them to hop just one district over and go to Clemens, where this is being offered as well. So I think it's really important to continue the excellence of our district to keep this program alive and well. One last thing before I close is Monday night at 6:30, all of the seniors in the IB program are throwing a party together. And we would like to invite each of you to come to that. They are all going to announce together where they're going to college next year. So we're having what we're calling the rocket launch, where we're going to show that off and all reveal that all at the same time. So we'd love for each of you to come, get a chance to interact with the students, the teachers, and the families to see what an excellent program this is. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Lauren Pelaez. Agenda item is continuation of IB program.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Pelaez, and I hope I don't cry. I am a crybaby, and all of my students and fellow faculty members know that, as well as my son, who is a senior this year. I have been in education for 26 years and a mom for 26 years. My 3 kids have been in Judson ISD since 2001 when we moved here from Southeast Missouri. Juan Carlos graduated, oh my goodness, in 2010, Julia in 2014, and Joe is here in this graduating class 2018. My first exposure to IB was in the spring of 2006 when Juan Carlos was in 8th grade, and it very quickly became evident that advanced academics was not for him. At Judson High School, it was soccer and wrestling and pals that kept him from getting lost in the crowd and going. My second exposure to IB was when I insisted that Julia continue with Spanish with her daily encouragement from Mr. Heiner, and it was IB that pretty much kept her from falling through the cracks. She ended up doing very well on the IB Spanish exam and earned 15 hours of credit from Texas State. I wish there had been, or she had been in the full-time program. And now here we are with Joe and friends, seeing his older siblings struggle to find their way, and knowing how challenging it can be to find your place at such a large high school. Joe applied and was accepted at JECA. However, he really enjoyed band, which is why I have on my Band Mom t-shirt. And he decided that he would prefer to go to Judson High School. Even then, it didn't occur to me that IB might be the place for him until I went to start teaching at Judson High School. 3 of my classes that year were IB classes. The training for IB teachers is exceptional, and I learned about the IB learner profile, which describes a broad range of human capacities and responsibilities that go beyond academic success. It encourages students to think and feel, fail and grow, learn and yearn for more. And that's how I knew that Joe would fit in, especially after deciding against JECA, that IB was for him. He's truly found a home with IB at Judson High School. It has been the best of 2 worlds that other schools could not provide: advanced academics and access to extracurricular activities. He went on to be drum major for 2 years while carrying on a full load of IB classes. The beauty is that a cohort of IB students forms a very tight-knit group, and with each other and with their teachers, much like a sports team. They study together, they play together, they attend each other's extracurricular events, they support each other in this world that is full of uncertainty and disappointments. They celebrate each other's successes. They are each other's safety nets and keep each other from falling through cracks. The IB experience educates the whole child at Judson High School and fills a niche that other programs cannot, and is sorely needed in such a large body of students. IB has come a long way in the past few years thanks to the hard work and dedication of our teachers and our admin. I and many hopeful future IB graduates would be heartbroken to see it go. I implore that the board consider allowing this wonderful program to continue. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have TJ Cunningham and Brian Jeffries, and the agenda item is summer programs.
Good evening. My name is TJ Cunningham, and I am the president of Meadowbrook subdivision. To my side, I have Mr. Brian Jeffries. He's the president of Fields of Dover, and standing right next to him is the president of Dover. Together, we represent over 2,000 residents on this side. What we want to talk about is the summer programs that seem to have went away last year. The year before last, we had summer programs that keep our kids busy, but last year there was no summer program. So what we notice when that happens is in our area, crime goes up. The kids don't have anything to do. They're looking for stuff to get in. So it's a lot of mischievous crime, you know, graffiti, stuff like that, breaking into cars. So we just want to make sure that we focus on bringing the summer programs back so we get the kids something to do, but also for our teenagers too, because they're the ones that are really getting into trouble. So maybe we can create programs where the teenagers mentor the younger adults or help guide the summer programs to deal with the children at the elementary school level, because we did have some of those the year before. So I don't know if Brian want to say anything.
Again, Brian Jeffries, President of Fields of Dover. We were lucky last year because you allowed us, you know, Superintendent allowed us to have a summer program, half day at Converse. And the year before that, we was at Daily Bread. But it's important, and I think we expressed to you guys how important it is for our communities to keep our kids active and structural active. And we wish to continue that support. And I know last year was kind of rough with all the construction that you had going on, but we want to really put an emphasis on continuing that. Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
I have only one thing to add. That is that the children of over 2,000 homes need you and the assistance that you provide and the programs that you provide. That's the reason that we came to see you, and hopefully you'll take what we have had to say to heart and our presence to heart. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, we'll move on to consideration of consent items. Please let me know if you'd like an item to be pulled. 4A, consider and take action regarding approving minutes from the regular board meeting held on March 22nd and minutes from the special meeting held on March 29th and April 9th, 2018. Consider and take action regarding approving monthly financial information as of March 31st, 2018. 4C, consider and take action regarding approving cash investment report for all funds as of March 31st, 2018. 4D, consider and take action regarding approving of expenditures equal to or greater than $50,000. 4E, consider and take possible action regarding approving amendments to the budget for the 2018 fiscal year. 4F, consider and take action regarding approving the submittal for request for proposal 17-35 for general and instructional supplies. 4G, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of submittals for requests for proposal 18-21, classroom school furnishings, elementary school. 4H, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of submittals for requests for proposal 18-22 for ancillary school furnishings, elementary school. 4I, consider and take action regarding approving the National Inventors Hall of Fame, Inc. proposal for kits and materials. 4J, consider and take action regarding approving a memorandum of understanding for the 2018-2019 school year with Family Services of San Antonio, Inc. concerning the Head Start program at certain campus locations.
Pulled.
4K, consider and take action regarding approving a proclamation to declare May 4th, 2018 as School Lunch Hero Day. 4L, consider and take action regarding approving the second reading of the deletion of EIF local academic achievement graduation. 4M, consider and take action regarding approving entering into an electric and gas lines right-of-way agreement with the City of San Antonio conveying a right-of-way easement for the distribution gas main pipelines, service connections, and electrical transmission and distribution lines over, on, and across the district's property located in Lot 35, Block 105, the Escondido Subdivision, Unit 5, Bexar County, Texas, and authorizing a signatory for the agreement. Thank you. I have a motion from Mr. LaFoille and a second from Mr. Macias. We are voting on items for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, and M. Motion's carry 7-0, and we will go back to item 4J. Consider and take action regarding approving a memorandum of understanding for the 2018-2019 school year with the Family Services of San Antonio, Inc., concerning the Head Start program at certain campus locations.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Macias, second by Ms. Canoyer. Mr. Macias.
Yes, I just had a couple of questions. We've been doing the collaboration with Head Start for about how long now?
Sir.
Since 2009?
Yes, sir.
And I'm confident that they've been doing a really good job. Head Start has a phenomenal reputation, and we know the impact is positive. But I have a couple of questions regarding the partnership with them. One is that it's always important to ensure that we're never complacent with our partners. And so in that aspect, what kind of assessment has been done to determine where this program has been impactful? Is there some sort of measurement or way that we're kind of determining the overall impact of the program?
We are able to track the number of students who attend, and similar to pre-K services, students who receive early childhood services are at an advantage over students who do not attend. We have currently 64 students attending at France, 51 students at Hopkins, and 102 students in Village Park. That's not counting the students who are serviced through their standalone location, who also feed into Ed France. We can provide that data for you so that we can see their student achievement versus students who do not attend Head Start.
There's not very many options for this program. I mean, in terms of looking at competitors, I don't think there's anyone else, maybe pre-K for SA, who would be doing this kind of work.
That would provide the services free of assistance. I'm not familiar with other programs.
Yeah, that's kind of hard whenever you're trying to determine its impact. You still want to make sure that it's impactful. But when there's no competition, it makes that a little bit challenging. And then the additional support that we receive from Head Start, what has that done, I guess, to help alleviate the issues that may surround the campus in terms of trying to help them? Let me backtrack. The reason I ask is because my opinion is that these services help students and families that are in need. And so, in doing so, that's an extra layer that's obviously not provided at every campus that we do. So there must be some, that additional benefit must help. So I wanted to know, aside from that additional benefit, are we doing everything else that we would do at any other elementary campus, but this is an add-on? Or is this simply just a measure now that puts everyone equitable, everyone being campuses and schools? From your assessment, or Dr. Montoya, is this added element truly an addition to, or just simply ensuring we have the right student-teacher ratio at that campus and so on?
This is in addition to the services that JISD provides. We provide pre-K at all our elementary locations to 4-year-olds. Head Start program is able to provide that service for students who qualify starting at the age of 3. For students who are 3 years old, that's a full-day service. In addition to students who qualified through Head Start and are currently enrolled in our pre-K program, they receive a half-day service through Head Start. In addition to, they receive an additional half-day through JISD. So it turns into a full day of service for students who are 4 years old.
Well, fantastic. My last question is this. When we're evaluating the program, are we tracking those students that were in the program in terms of their continuation with the district, or do they leave after the pre-K program is completed, when they're in kinder or first grade or second or so on?
I can provide that specific information to you. I know that Head Start has that information, but Head Start is only provides services to the students within this area.
Of course, but I would just be kind of interested to see if we see that. And I guess the reason for that too is because when we're assessing the impact of a program, my opinion would be that we would see the impact in their achievement in second, third, fourth, and so on as they go forward. So I'd like to track that in any way, just so we have some way of quantifying this is really, I mean, it's above and beyond. But it's all about substance. What is it truly doing, and are we just collaborating and they're using our name to write grants, they being Head Start? Are we really getting something solid out of it? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez.
I have a question for Mr. Macias. So are you asking whether this Family Service Association of San Antonio is the right provider, or if we should have Head Start at all?
And again, it's always been.
I'm just clarifying, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're one and the same, and that's my opinion. Am I correct or incorrect in that assessment? That Family Services Association does have a Head Start program. Is that how it's broken? Yeah. So.
Right, but I'm asking, so you have a lot of questions about the program. Is your questioning around the provider of the Head Start services, or, because Head Start is a federal program,
It is.
my understanding.
My whole question of the matter is measuring its impact. Basically, I want to know that, are we just going through the motions? Are there truly an impact from this program? And in everything we do, we should be measuring the level of impact, because as we will allude to in next month's meeting, when I put it on the agenda to re-examine the comprehensive study on reaching grade level and above, this is a piece of that puzzle. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about maximizing our potential, is this program meeting that substance? Yeah. Are we, and that's where I'd like to have that data. And then I'd like to also know if the turnover is high. If we lose families in a campus like Park Village that's highly mobile to begin with, we have a high mobility rate at that campus. So are they staying in the program, and are we losing them? It would just be interesting for us to know as we build strategies to truly reach students and keep them on campus. So that's why I'd like to know what that looks like.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 7-0. I will be reading the proclamation for School Lunch Hero Day that was already passed previously. Whereas Judson ISD recognizes the important role that child nutrition plays in the academic preparedness and performance of students in the classroom. May 4th, 2018 has been designated as District School Lunch Hero Day by the Judson Independent School District Board of Trustees. And whereas child nutrition staff are responsible for the planning, preparing, and serving of the most health-conscious meal options for the students of Judson ISD while satisfying state and federal guidelines. And whereas child nutrition staff are partners within our schools who take pride in ensuring that our students are provided with the necessary sustenance to support active and engaged learners. Our child nutrition staff cares about the meals that are prepared, the organization of campus cafeterias, and most importantly, the nourishment of JISD students. They are always there to reach out with a helping hand. Their hard work and dedication is appreciated and noticed by the staff, parents, and students alike. And whereas it is the district's commitment that every child nutrition staff is shown appreciation and thanks for all they do for our district and students in an effort to work together to support student learning, meaningfully involved in the preparation of the learning environment, and know that their jobs really matter. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Melinda Salinas, Board President of Judson Independent School District, do hereby proclaim May 4th, 2018 as School Lunch Hero Day in Judson Independent School District, and urge all to participate with the recognition of the child nutrition staff within this district, and to support and participate in creative ways to thank the child nutrition staff at your campuses. Thank you. And we will move on. 5A and B we'll come back to after closed session. For 6, I'm going to move B up, Jeff 2017 State of the Foundation, before we do the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lexi Greathouse. I am the Executive Director of the Judson Education Foundation. Throughout the year, the foundation holds various events that directly gives back towards our innovative teacher grants and student scholarships. So tonight I have a video to show you to show you what the impact the foundation is having on the district in the past year. The Judson Education Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that seeks financial support from the community and corporate donors to provide and sustain district-wide opportunities for educational excellence in Judson ISD. In 2017, Jeff celebrated 18 years of fundraising to subsidize innovative teacher grants and student scholarships. Here are some of the highlights over our last year. In 2017, Jeff proudly funded 23 teacher grants, totaling $36,777, and 33 student scholarships totaling $59,500. Jeff Board of Directors have dedicated a total of 900 volunteer hours this past year. Whether it's time, money, or an in-kind donation, the success of our foundation depends on the generosity of our community and corporate sponsors. While we honor and appreciate all of our partners, we would like to especially recognize our top 5 corporate sponsors for 2017. With your continued support, the Judson Education Foundation is able to enrich teaching, inspire learning, and provide opportunities for excellence in education for all students in the Judson Independent School District. On behalf of the Judson Education Foundation board members, we would like to thank you for the past 18 years of continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. 6A, Superintendent's Report, Construction Update.
Members of the board, this is again a monthly report that we update you on all the various bond projects in the district. They are moving forward in numerous locations. And Dr. Fields, if you'd like to briefly share some review.
Yes, sir. Just a few notes on the modernization and improvements, and that's basically the 7 campuses that had the cafeterias and other ones that needed more work done on them. We combined the work on those campuses and then put it out for architects. And we've finally gotten to the negotiation phase. They proposed on all those campuses what they wanted to do and for the price. And now we responded with comments and waiting for them to get back. So we're moving forward with that. We should be down to coming up with an agreement. Then they can start making the designs. Then after we finish the designs, we go out for contractors. And then once we negotiate with the contractors, we would actually start the work. In terms of the insurance and the roofs, we gave a percentage completion last month. So this month, Park Village went from 55% to 70%. Wagner went from 63% to 80%. Vishal went to 50% to 85%. Hopkins from 90 to 95%. Masters from 82 to 95%. And Elof from 90 to 95% complete. So we're moving quickly and finishing off the roofs, but there's still work to be done. I would tell you the reason why Park Village is taking a little bit longer because it's a metal roof, and it's not your standard roof that you have to lay down. And there's only really a few metal compressors that they can then take to put those on. All of those projects and all of our projects are on time and under budget. And I'd stand ready for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Good. Okay. We'll move on to 6C, first reading of the following policies. BBB local board member elections. Ms. Kenoyer.
I have a question. I'm just a little confused about this, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear. For the at-large elections, are we moving away from having two places that you run for, and we're just going to elect from the pool of people who choose to run, the top two vote getters are then elected? Is that what I'm reading here? No?
Yeah, they're just revisions. They're just updates to what you've done in the past, so we're not moving away from anything.
Okay, because the way it's worded made me wonder, so that's why I asked.
So if there's a problem with the wording, you need to let us know.
Okay.
And that way we can get with our policy consultants with TASB and make those revisions as you see fit.
Okay, thank you.
But they're just updates.
Go ahead. Mr. Macias?
I'm fine.
Okay, I do have a question, I think, also related to Ms. Canoyer's. So I think where it says at-large 2, the election of 2 board members, and it used to say places 6 and 7, that will be gone. So it does almost lend to, because then when you read down here, it says to be elected, the at-large candidates receiving the highest number of votes.
So we can ask that question of our policy consultant to make sure that we're in compliance with the law as it reads with our policy.
Right, so do we just need to add places 6 and 7, or are we?
We can, if you'd like, for the revisions, but they were just going back through our policy.
Sure.
Because it hadn't been updated since 2013, and saying, this is a little firmer language for us. But I certainly can ask them to explain it a little bit more and bring it back through a memo or a report for you guys prior to the second reading.
Right, okay, thank you. Mr. Macias? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, actually, thank you. I do have a quick comment to that too, just to reinforce the confusion. When we pick up our packets, there's always a place 6 and a place 7. Not that I've ever picked up in a large packet, but that's how we identify or differentiate which member. And so as Dr. Salinas was mentioning, the way it's written seems to just say we're going to have 2 at-large seats. And
I will ask them to clarify the confusion.
And it's local policy, so I'm certain we could do what we need to do a local policy. It's not a legal policy.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Gonzalez, the sentence that really confused me on this is the one where it says the at-large candidates receiving the highest number of votes for the number of positions with expiring terms shall be elected. And so to me, that sounds like how they do it, for example, at Universal City Council. You file for council, not for a place. And so that's what was confusing to me. So that if we could clarify that. Thank you.
I will ask for clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is C2, BBBA, local elections, conducting new elections. It's a new policy. Any discussion? Okay. You do have a question? Oh, go ahead.
So this is also a local policy. And when you say procedures, Dr. Montoya, this particular, or Mr. Gonzalez, either one of you, is enabling the superintendent or designee to make decisions regarding, no? Okay, so
It's just the logistics of it, not anything beyond that.
It's where they're found.
A lot of that language is the same. They're just moving that to a separate policy. They're really just moving that over to a separate policy. They've created a new policy, BBBA. If you look at the bottom of BBB, it's there at the bottom. They're just, for whatever reason, created a new policy.
I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Excuse me, discussion of JECA selection process and proposed administrative procedure.
Okay, Dr. Cantu, if you'd please share some information on that.
Yes, I have a brief presentation.
Good evening, Madam President and board members and Dr. Montoya. In your packet, you have the administrative procedures, but you should have received two different documents. One is a revised administrative procedures and also a copy of the PowerPoint. And I just want to verify that everyone received a copy. Okay. So what I'd like to do is begin with the administrative procedures. During the last meeting, there was some recommendation made by some of our board members. And so if you will turn to page 2 of 2, you notice that there's some items that have been highlighted. The recommendation was to ensure that we added more individuals to the lottery committee. This procedure is originally was at 7, and the recommendation was to include 1 middle school counselor from each middle school. So instead of having 1 middle school counselor, we would have 5. And also, instead of having 1 parent, include 5 parents. 1 from each middle school. So if you notice, the committee grew from 7, that's a change, it's highlighted for your reference, from 7 to 15. We also included the language that talks about at-risk identification and included the language that states including first-generation college students. We know that was something that was questioned. So those are the administrative procedures, and just so that you understand the context, it does say draft. Once the discussion has been completed, then these will be posted on the district website and become procedures that will need to be followed and adhered to moving forward. The next document that I gave you is a PowerPoint, and this is what I have up on the screen. So there's some information that I left there because it's important for the context, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time unless you wish me to do that. So one of the things that I talked about at the last meeting, we talked about that the selection of students needs to be, we were looking at grades, attendance, and discipline referrals, and those were criteria that were being used to identify students to enroll at JECA. We have moved away from that. We have a revised early college blueprint, and I've stated benchmark 1, and so it became, or it's an open access lottery system. I'll explain a little bit more about that. This slide, I added the information on the table that you see here. One of the questions had to do, was there representation from all middle schools? We did have some problems several years ago where we had middle schools that were not represented. And so what we did is the new procedure talks about equitable middle school representation, and it's based on the current 8th grade enrollment. So obviously these numbers would change every year. But you can see on the far left-hand side, the middle school, you can see the enrollment that we had at the time of when this was taken. And then we divided that. If we were seeking 130 slots for the students, we divided that based on a percentage. So that information is there. That is new information. I also just want to reiterate that the committee looked at applications by numbers, and we did not look at student names or student information. I listed, and there wasn't any changes on this, the responsibilities of the committee, so I'm going to skip this one, but feel free to let me know if you need for me to stop. This page is a new page, and this is a summary of the student demographic data. And one of the things, as of yesterday, we had, you noticed that we said we were going to select 130 students and some alternates. Well, out of the 130, 125 students attended orientation and accepted their seat at JECA. 5 students are still pending their acceptance. 23 students, there was 10 males that after orientation declined. This orientation was this past Saturday, and the reasons that they stated is because they were looking at other options, such as T-STEM, such as other pathways at other high schools instead of attending JECA. So they're in our district, however, they chose a different option. The table indicates a number of, you see the gender, the number of students that are first generation. I know that one of the questions that came up is, making sure that our students that are first generation carry a larger percentage of the enrollment. And as you will note, the larger percentage is 80%. So you may be wondering about the other 25 students. The other 25 students, some have parents that have some college work, some did not complete the college work, in some cases some did, but they met other criteria, at-risk criteria. So it could be, for example, ELL, or they could be EcoDisc. So the fact that they're not first generation does not mean that they are not at risk. There is one area that once it was done in a random manner, we used technology to do randomization and selection of students. And that stood out to me was the females and the males, the number of students that were selected in this process. Obviously, the males has grown. Our hope was that we would, our hope was that the male population would increase. But we went back and looked at how many applications we actually got that were female. And the total application that we got for students was 237. Out of the 237, 62% of those were females. That means it was 148 applications. So by far we had more applications that were females, and 89 applications were males, which was 38%. I also want to note that one of the important things about ensuring that we adhere to this blueprint is the GT population. When we looked at the comparison data from previous years, the GT population at JECA was 31.89%. With this new procedure, it has dropped to 14%, and you can see that. We also are having, it's been inclusive of our special ed, dyslexia, and ELL students, and that information is there. So in summary, I would like to say that the new administrative procedures will be a repeatable process that will be available on our website for our parents and students and staff to understand that there is a process. We're going to safeguard the process to make sure that it is in adherence to the TEA recommendations. And also, all these procedures that have been outlined were reviewed and vetted through a process. They went through the campus administration. We took this to the JET team. We also ran this through our TEA assigned coach and ensured that she had, that we were in the same, in agreement and we were aligning to the blueprint. And the last phase is sharing it with the board and see if there's any feedback so that before we post them, we'd like to take your thoughts and ideas to revise and update this procedure.
Ms. Bichot.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu, for this comprehensive report. So I would like to just ask you some questions about the 20% at risk. You directed me to look at the at-risk criteria. You said there were 13 of them.
Yes, ma'am.
So are these, out of the 13, the ones that are the ethnicity, EcoDisc, dyslexia, ELL, GT, spec ed?
I was anticipating that there might be some clarification on the at-risk criteria. So I went ahead and pulled from the TA website the 13 indicators so that you could have them for reference. And I'll be happy to entertain your question.
So what I want to know is, any of those 13 indicators will be used for, well, you're not using names of students, but for positions?
Yes, ma'am.
All of the 13 you will be considering?
Only those that apply to the secondary level, because there are some indicators that have to do, for example,
for
with the pre-K.
elementary?
Yeah.
I see.
Yes.
Thank
so
you.
Those that are applicable to the secondary, they will be included. And it's a requirement of the blueprint.
So only number one then does not pertain to secondary.
If you look at the list, let me quickly make sure that I am. Yes, ma'am, because the other indicators could actually apply to.
That would be secondary.
That is correct.
All right. This is so much clearer to me. I appreciate it. So, and one more thing I'd like to ask, just for clarity's sake, which one of these documents is going to be on the website for parents and students, community?
It will be the administrative procedures, the copy that I have provided. I will delete the highlighted sections, but if you'll notice at the bottom of the second page, you will see a note that it was revised for 18.
And the PowerPoint, will that be available also?
We can make it available. In the administrative procedures, we don't necessarily put PowerPoints, but we can make it available on the website in the event that anyone wants to look at it. Or it's available on call also, upon requested.
What I like about it is that it's very specific where it says 80% first gen, and if you know, the community were to see that, that might be a little bit more explanatory for them to see. Let me ask you another question. I thought I was done. So what if you don't get 80% students? What if you get 65%?
It's possible. However, because there's a weight, if you look at the administrative procedures number 3, there is a weight on the students that have the most number of indicators that they meet for at-risk. So if I'm applying and I meet 6 indicators, then there's a weight of 6 versus...
From the at-risk category.
Versus the individual that might meet 1 indicator.
Okay. I'm glad to know that you would be reaching from the at-risk category. That's a lot more explanatory. Thank you very much, Dr. Cantu.
You're welcome.
I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. Again, really a good presentation. I guess my question is somewhat on the lines of Ms. Bashal. We're having this discussion because there's a sentiment that we've kind of gone off course in terms of reaching the objectives of first generation and economically disadvantaged population. This question, I guess, would be for Dr. Montoya, but this was already sort of a policy or a standard that was where JECA was created. We got off course. What assurances are that we would stay on course? I mean, again, part of Ms. Purcell's inquiries, we would look at other factors, but administrations change, boards change, and all of a sudden we're off target again. So is this something that would need to be a local policy? How are we going to ensure?
Mr. Macias, the discussion we actually had with some TASB attorneys and some others, they said it would be best not to make it a policy. It'd be best to make it an administrative procedure because over time, if TEA changes, and they do change sometimes in Austin, some of the direction on some of the early college operations, and it's mandatory if you're going to get funded that you do that or you're not going to get money. So it gives you a little more flexibility. But with that being said, the key for us or anybody else is going to be that as we work with the principal, the administration, the counselors of that program and other programs in the district that feed into that program from the middle schools, that they understand that this is the way it's going to be. This is a procedure and it's going to be enforced from that angle. And obviously we have a person at central office that will kind of oversee the big picture, but we also need to make sure that the campus level people understand that and follow through.
I guess that sounds fine. And I guess we should probably always keep our eye on the ball anyway, any oversight mechanism. So thank you. I appreciate the response.
Ms. Bashal.
Dr. Montoya, when will the draft become finalized?
If here in the short term, literally in the next probably few days, if the board has no other things they want to send to Dr. Cantu or our office, we can put it on probably within a week or less.
And because, and just for clarity's sake, I was reminded that because it's an administrative procedure, it does not require board approval.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6E, discuss reinstatement of Judson High School IB program.
At this time, Ms. Barra, if you'd like to share some information, and Mr. Hernandez.
I believe one of the questions that came up about now that we don't have that early college, we've limited early college. One of the things that we wanted to share with you is how IB could really help and enhance, especially for those students needing those hours when they move on to higher ed. So Mr. Hernandez and his team have come up with, bless you, with some of the reasons of why they believe that the IB program should be reinstated, and realizing that there were some changes, bless you, there were some changes that were recommended the last time before we cut it off. Changes were made, and I believe Mr. Hernandez now has that PowerPoint to share with you on it.
Before I begin, God bless you. I didn't want to interrupt Ms. Barrett. Good evening, Dr. Salinas and Dr. Montoya and distinguished members of the board. We're here to talk about the IB program and why it first left the campus in order to usher in early college, and now that early college is no longer part of what we do at Judson High School, we want to show you how the IB program has evolved to be something different, something better, and seeking a blessing to move forward and continue to service our kids. Today, I have with me three of our most distinguished faculty members of the IB program. This is Lexi McJilton. She was here previously speaking with the board. This is Mr. Justin Anderson. He is our biology teacher for IB, and the Judson High School Teacher of the Year and IB coordinator, Mr. Benjamin Dickens. And we will be going back and forth with this presentation.
All right, so a brief history of our program. When we think of traditions at Judson, we think of state championships, sweepstakes with our marching band. We think of Thanksgiving at Wagner, Owarsay, Jingle at the J. But IB has been a part of that tradition since 1985, when we began our trip to become an IB World School. To put that in perspective, our first junior cohort started the year I was born. Since that time, we've made a lot of changes. We've had an incredibly rigorous program, some amazing IB cohorts. And so in 2014 and 2015, we looked to add to the program. We decided to create the MYP, or implement the MYP program at our school, to help with our 9th and 10th graders to strengthen their cohort, and from there better prepare them for their exams. In 2016, it was decided to phase out the program. And from there, we refocused our program. We shifted some things around, made some changes, and had some crazy amount of success. When you look at our success from last year, we doubled the amount of IB kids attempting to get the diploma, and we quadrupled the amount of kids that got the diploma. So 8 out of our 18 seniors last year received the IB diploma. We're getting them at least 24 credit hours at a Texas institution.
And 42 at Trinity.
Yes, it's you. All right, I'll get a click. So just to show you some of our success. Looking at our passing rates, we've got high success in a lot of our cohort areas. So looking at English, Spanish, history, biology, we made a great increase as well. Math, SL, and our new music program had a huge amount of success in 2017. And so as you see, we doubled the amount of students that were attempting the IB diploma. We required that all students in the IB program push for the IB diploma, and we quadrupled the amount that received the diploma.
And by the way, the music IB program outperformed the world in terms of their average in passing.
They received a perfect score.
So moving on to the recent changes, and I want to predate this slide and talk about a meeting that we had with Ms. Barra and Ms. Robinson at the time, who used to be in charge of curriculum and instruction. We were challenged at Judson High School to take a look at the IB program and consider whether we want to improve or remove the program. At that time, we decided, let's keep it because it is part of what the Judson brand stands for. And in 2016 and 2015, as a matter of fact, we made trips to look at other successful programs and see what they were doing when we implemented some of those changes. One of the things that we discovered from from actually the oldest IB school in Texas, they told us that AP and IB cannot live in the same house. and we proved that wrong. We made it work with both programs together. One thing that we decided to do was to separate those classes that were stacked in IB and AP and give them their own course and their own curriculum to focus for that test. Some more changes that were implemented were to better support the students academically. They were exposed to content for 2 school years in order to prepare for the exams that they take their senior year. Only diploma-seeking candidates were allowed in the program, and extensive training for the teachers, the counselors, and myself was added to this program. And in 2018, those results yielded in the highest number of diploma graduates.
So looking at the participation with our last 2 cohorts, the year of 2017, we graduated 18 seniors. We then roughly doubled that this year, hoping to graduate 35, 34 diploma candidates. In terms of our breakdown, we've got 44% of the class of 2017 economically disadvantaged, 37% of our current senior class, 2018, are academically disadvantaged. Mr. Hernandez addressed that we tried to modify the program to ensure that we have more accessibility. And one way we did this is that we expanded the program in terms of the math options as well as the Spanish options. One barrier for the IB diploma was that it required a level 4 or level 5 Spanish course. We brought in the program that is ab initio, and that allows students to still get the diploma while reaching Spanish level 3. Also, the students that aren't looking to dive too deep into calculus now have an option to go into math studies, which focuses more on statistics and kind of a business perspective of math. And so you see our GT population did decrease as we opened up those new options. We had 50% of our population in 2017 being GT and 37% currently being GT.
So one of the strengths of Judson High School is its diversity. Currently, there are 7 home languages being spoken at Judson High School, and our population is a cross-section of the community that we serve. This diversity is exemplified in our numbers in the IB program as well, considering that last year, 1/3 of the IB seniors in that class were African American. 5 of the 8 diploma candidates and graduates were African American as well. And 80% passing rate is what we boast for our African American students in the IB program in Spanish. 8 IB diploma graduates last year, as we said, was the most in its history. And currently we have 6 out of 35 of our current seniors are Asian, 15 of the 35 are Hispanic, 86% are at risk, and we run the gamut in terms of socioeconomic status. And to say that these are the best kids on the campus is almost erroneous. These are the hardest working kids on the campus. Some of our kids don't show academic success on the SAT. We range from 800 to 1400, but even the kids that are barely getting through that are getting through the program because of their grit, their stick-to-itiveness, and the efforts that they put forth to get through this program. We want to make sure that we address the mismanagement previously from the program and show you that currently 15 of those sections are being taught with 9 teachers. The enrollment of those classes ranges from 9 to 22, and only 2 courses, because of our limitations in language, are less than 10 kids in those classes. All teachers except for 1 teach 5 or more courses. Most of our teachers teach anywhere from 2 to 5 preps for IB, and these are the best of the best teachers. 3 of those teachers are currently department chairs. We have the teacher that serves as the campus webmaster. We have a golf coach. We have choir and band directors. And these are teachers that are trained specifically to address the rigors of the program and get our kids to reach those expectations. That's me. So the budget in 2017 reached $55,000 to account for a total of 176 students being serviced. The 54 upperclassmen, which now we have the 34 seniors, and we also wanted to bring into the fold 122 underclassmen with the MYP program. That has since been removed. If the budget allowed only for the implementation of the DP program, this is roughly $1,000 per student. Most of the operating budget for Judson High School most of the operating budget for the IB program is taken directly from the allocations for Judson High School's local budget.
Our current campus budget is $33,000. When looking at the exams that these students are going to be taking in May, we have 272 exams being taken by 34 students. That does add up to $31,000, which we've been allocated this year. This is approximately $114 per student with an overall passing rate of 56% in all of our courses. Some of those exceed that, with history and English being far above or at 75%. The budget for the 2018-2019 year would only be for registration fees and some training. There would be no testing fees this year as our students test their senior year. This would also allow our students that entered in 2 years ago as freshmen that once the program was cut, switched to early college. Now that early college is phasing out, they could then continue how they started their journey with Judson with the IB program.
Yeah, take it.
All right. We ask our community to support our students for 13 years. How often do we actually ask our students to give back to the community? I think that's the greatest strength that IB has, is that we require students to get the diploma, they have to give back to the community in some way. And this is through our community service requirement. All students are required to complete at least 50 hours of community service throughout 2 years. Maybe 50 hours doesn't seem like a lot, but these students often have jobs, marching band, various sports. They're incredibly busy. So looking at our 2016-2017 cohort, we've got 900 community service hours alone. The next class, 1,700 hours in the community. And this isn't just at Converse. We move into San Antonio. We've become very well known at the Guadalupe Home, some of the Catholic charities throughout San Antonio, and the Humane Society. Now again, I said IB requires 50 hours, but they also require a service project from each of these students. So much like an Eagle Scout project or an FFA project, these students have to partake in at least a month-long service project that they create themselves. They are tasked with going out into the community, figuring out what the community needs, and from there creating a program that's going to meet that need. And so as a list here are some of the notable programs that we are doing this year with our cohort. So first we have the Splash of Color Run for the Center and the Intrepid. One of our students, a runner, identified that she wanted to combine her love of track with a need of the community to help out our wounded warriors in San Antonio. And so she and her partner are creating a program that will probably bring about 400 students, 400 teachers, 400 wounded warriors coming out and running around Judson High School, throwing some color at each other and having a good time and raising a whole lot of money for those that need it. We have students that identified that we needed to improve our school culture, and from there created an Olympic event of all the clubs. The clubs would then compete, and from there we could improve our environment at Judson High School. We have a few students that are going out to our elementary schools, working with our elementary students, dealing with nutrition, health, exercise, and being a mentor for those kids. As Mr. Reuter has stated, we have our IB College Signing Day, or rocket launch. Our rocket launch that we invite you all to come out on Monday to partake, in which our students are going to come out and from there get all excited and say where they're going for college, where they've worked 2 years incredibly hard to get to. And finally, we've got some projects where kids do something on their own. We had a student that identified that the seniors in her community needed help, so she created her own greenhouse, and from there grew her own crops and hand-delivered those crops to her senior neighbors. So our students are incredibly busy. As part of our CAS, we've got the idea of we also have to focus on action. And so our students are active either in marching band, in sports, or just becoming, dealing with exercise. And finally, there's a little goof there. I'll take that. And then finally, dealing with creativity, which I think is huge for an honors program. And creativity really focuses on the fact that we've got some amazing kids that are working in orchestra, choir, band, or just learning instruments on their own. We have one that goes over to Mr. Hernandez's house and plays piano. But that's one of the big strengths of our program.
So another elephant in the room that I wanted to address as well is the budgetary constraints. I was warned about the timeliness of this presentation and the financial burden on the district, and I think what an opportune time to discuss this and ensure that the dollars that are being spent adequately, and the results are going to be tremendous for our kids. One of the things we were considering to offset the cost for the district is to implement a cost-sharing model where students, through fundraising, local sponsors, and community support, could probably get all the funds needed to offset the cost of their testing. To give them 2 years to raise $1,000 is adequate enough time, and they would actually be part of one of their GIPSO projects. We would also try to implement an extended payment program for those that wish to not participate in the fundraising, and give a shot in the arm to the program for the testing required. So just to look at the numbers in terms of the higher academic programs that we have at Judson, you can see here that it is a fraction of the cost of what other programs are using for the district, and the results speak for themselves. Next year, you heard Mr. Dickens state that the program would only be charged a registration fee, and we would actively seek to keep the program small in an effort to save funds for the district. And keeping this project at under $50,000 would definitely behoove the district and the campus. Having said that, we want to make sure that we are good stewards of those public funds.
All right, so to end with why, again, IB was transitioned out to make room for early college, but as early college is transitioning out, it's a great time to bring us back. Again, with resurgence of our improved academic performance, doubling the amount of IB diploma candidates that we have and quadrupling the amount of diploma candidates that found success or found 24 credit hours at a Texas institution, we recommend that the JISD board considers restating the JHS IB program for the 2018-2019 school year for a junior cohort.
And as I mentioned earlier, keeping the program small would make this an expenditure that although we recognize this expenditure does not require board approval, we are here to seek your blessing to continue to support some of the greatest kids at Judson ISD, to encourage them to move on with their higher academics and create museum curators, musicians, doctors, soccer players, singers, just creativity that goes beyond the classroom. With that, we ask that you join us on Monday as well for the IB signing, and we ask again for your blessing as we move forward and try to continue a tradition.
It'll be at 6:30 in the PAC.
Are there any questions that we can answer?
Rodriguez?
I had a couple of questions. So it looks like from 2016 to 2017, you significantly increased the number of IB graduates. What was it in previous years? Like, how does that compare to like at its height or, when it first kicked off?
I think since 1985, it wavered from 1 to 2, maybe 3 at most.
Okay.
But in the past, to be completely transparent, the IB program offers a certificate program where students choose which class to take and not take the entire diploma program.
Right.
So kind of like, it's very similar to the AP, but the curriculum is completely different. It's more depth rather than
I'm familiar with IB.
Excellent.
The other question I had was, so you on the second to the last slide, you had the comparison between TSTEM, JECA, and IB. I think like an important piece of context that I think might be missing here is, what are you spending per student at Judson High School? Because I feel like JECA and TSTEM are standalone schools.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's their per student funding.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would assume this 1,018 is on top of.
On top of the
Yes.
roughly a little over $4,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll say, I'm a big fan of IB. I'm not, I think it is more rigorous than
We are
AP,
too.
and I've taught AP and read for AP, and it's better, but it's also.
It's different.
Yes.
It's different.
Mr. Macias.
Thank you for the presentation. I mean, obviously was on the board when we discussed this program and had to make the hard decision to move forward. Just a clarity question. You mentioned earlier about getting the blessings of the board in terms of, so is it because you're using your local funds to fund the IB program that you would say, you'd make that statement?
Well, not only that, sir, board policy states that any expenditure over $50,000 does require board approval. At this point next year, it would not exceed that, or it won't even come close to that. We have carved out from our local budget in order to pay for the program roughly $33,000 each year.
Okay, I just wanted clarity on that
Yes, sir.
sentiment. Naturally, we're talking budgets now, and so
Yes, sir.
when we talk allocations, that's going to be a big deal as we try to curve the $13 million that we have. And then the concern that I had as a board member, I don't ever want to speak on behalf of my colleagues, but what my concern was the apparent inefficiency of how the program was being administered. And that was something that even Dr. Salinas had brought out in terms of our discussions that I was not aware of. So I'm always going to be receptive to re-examining things if they are indeed more efficient. But I think back then the reason why I felt comfortable with that is because we were increasing our dual credit programming to offer up to 42 hours of college credit. And when we're trying to impact as many students as possible, I just felt that was a better place to put funding in, since we have to cut somewhere. IB, my daughter was in it her first 2 years at Judson. That's where I met Mr. Heiner. He was phenomenal. So I know the service that's provided our students is top notch. But I would hope that that could transition if we went dual credit much more aggressively. I do admire the children being here, the students, and their engagement. I always think that's phenomenal. But I guess if you get your allocation for Judson, you're going to then try to continue to sustain this program in its current format.
I would like to, sir, with a consensus that we have the support of our community.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Hernandez and staff and students for being here. I too was on the board at the time when we were doing reviews of all different programs. And just to be clear, our goal was not to cut IB. Our goal, as Mr. Macias said, was to look, we have to look at, Mr. Elizondo makes it very clear that, you know, we have to be good stewards of the funding,
Yes.
of taxpayer dollars, and we weren't good stewards. So the reason we don't have the program anymore is because we had employees who were being paid, and not from your local budget, that was from the district budget,
Right.
paying for salaries with no students being taught,
Correct.
and receiving stipends, which are for extra duty outside of the regular school day, and again, no duties. And so that basically, it was money that was being given away when we have teachers sitting with 33 kids in a classroom.
Right.
And so that was the reason that raised a lot of red flags. There were district level people who didn't know that was happening. Board members, I didn't know, we were just looking at master schedules, and we started asking questions. So it wasn't about, let's not have IB. I think IB is a great program. I would love to keep it. I think it's great that, I guess it's unfortunate that this had to happen, so then all of a sudden now we increase all of the graduates, which is a good thing. But you're right, that was the other thing we looked at, was over 20 years, or it was one a year. And it just wasn't a good use of the money. And we weren't pushing our students as much as we could have. And we weren't utilizing our employees with their talents either. And so that was the purpose. And so I do appreciate you bringing it back. I know we had some discussion earlier, and I did say, I don't know if this is the right time. We're in budget and we're in a deficit and we've got to cut money. And so I do appreciate, though, you bringing it back, and I do appreciate your transparency. And sure, we always want what's best for kids, and we always want to offer as many choices as possible. I don't think there's anyone up here who doesn't want that. However, whether you're there or there's another principal there, we cannot let happen what happened before.
Agreed.
Ever. because it's just not acceptable, because you knew, or somebody knew at your campus when they made the master schedule, that we had 2 teachers not teaching any kids and getting paid plus a stipend. So somebody knew that was happening and had allowed that to happen, and we cannot have that happen.
And since that's been remedied, Dr. Salinas?
Correct, right. I'm glad it has been remedied,
ma'am.
but I wish it had been remedied prior to, so we wouldn't have to have you wanting to bring it back.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but definitely, I support IB. I think it's a great program, but I do think with all programs, we have to make sure we're using our money wisely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Any? We'll move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6F, update on statement of impact amendment by KIPP Austin Public Schools.
Again, members of the board, this is something we always bring to you as charter or private schools open. TEA sends that to us, and we fill out the basic impact and send it to Austin. Again, the basic impact is, in being truthful with you and transparent, is that as we lose students, obviously we lose funding. But basically, we fill out the form and send it to Austin.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Dr. Montoya, I think I'll make a point of asking this every month now that this comes up. We know they're coming. What are we doing about it? And when I mean that, it's something I brought up at the last meeting and the meeting before. We do not have to sit back and say, oh, great, they're coming. We can take the offensive. And so can you talk a little bit about how that's looking?
The offense, in my mind, has to come from 2 angles. We have to have good teachers doing a good job in the classroom. That's number 1. And I think we do. We have excellent teachers and staff. So I think that's the main focus. The other focus, which we need to work on, and I know we've talked about it internally, is a little more on the public relations, information to the public. What are we doing in the public school that is successful academically, activities, and other areas? And that we probably need to do a little bit better, and I think in the future, that'll be one of the goals as we work on that. Those are probably the biggest areas.
Well, thank you. I again will tell you, KIPP Academy, or KIPP programming, they want to be Judson ISD. I mean, that's naturally where they're headed. They're not. We're Judson. And clearly, the marketing tactics that we need to utilize would be to promote in the area of the campus what our programs look like, where we're successful. That we have institutions like Judson Early College that is focused on college readiness, that we have dual credit. I mean, these are all wonderful programs that make our district better. And so I would dare say that that has to be a plan of action, because if it's not written anywhere, or if it's not, it's just going to fade away. And so clearly having criteria to address the expansion of charters is very important. We have to get our message out there. And I think the community deserves to know what we're doing and where we're excelling.
Ms. Pichelle.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, I'd like to ask Mr. Macias a question.
Sure.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is marketing. Are you talking about marketing our
Promotion,
programs
marketing, it can be grassroots. I mean, it really is just putting a process in place to promote to our community in areas where these charters are coming up, that we're better, that we have these programs. We're in a very pro-choice world now. So let's choose to come to Judson ISD because we have an excellent athletics program, that we have early college, that we have dual credit, that we have things for kids, we have career paths that KIPP can't replicate in any way, shape, or form. These are our high-value things that make us very unique. And again, as I say earlier, they want to be where we are, and they can't. But they can promote the heck, and they have those, as Dr. Montoya said, $1 million budgets to promote.
Right.
But you know what? We have 25,000 students. We have double the parents. We have our methods and strategies that can get the message out about who and what we are. But to double down on that, the other part is we have to ensure we're doing the best job. We have to ensure that we're pushing as the teachers that stay in the classroom. We have to do all that stuff that we're doing, and I think we are. But it's promotion in its purest form, but in life it's complicated. There's more to it, but that's essentially what it is, and we do not have to worry about promoting to the entire district unless we're surrounded by charters in every aspect. Right now, we know KIPP is looking at a certain area. We know Great Hearts is doing the same thing. Let's just hit, yeah, we know that. That's where we go, and I would even be bold enough to set up a nice little tent that says Judson ISD across from their academy and tell them, come learn about who we are. I mean, we can be bold in this respect, and I think we need to.
Mr. Macias, I'd like to just kind of outline just something strategically that the communications department is doing. We have focused a public relations plan in reference to the idea at Judson School and the idea at Walsham School specifically. We don't have a big budget for it, but I have already got submissions for Public Information Act requests for all the students in those two campuses that live at the residence within the zip codes in our district footprint, so that we can do mail-outs, we can do a certain amount of distribution of materials that outline just what you're saying. We have to be, because of the budget, we can't be exhaustive, but we can be to the point, and we can be concise, basically saying to the effect of, you know, we understand you're at a different school. We hope things are going well, but if not, reconsider. This is what we have to offer, and we would love to have you back. And that's I think, one way that we can approach these individuals who are within our footprint, who are maybe going to a charter or even a private school, some of the private schools around the area as well, but where we can start to reclaim some of that enrollment that we have lost over the last couple of years.
Well, I commend that. That's very good. And in all transparency to my community as well, I do work for a charter. That's my professional work now, the last 6 months. And I help with their marketing, and I help with their promotion, and I know what their messaging is. I can tell you when
you can help me out a little bit.
I would absolutely love to, because I tell you, I'm not in this because I'm one against the other. I'm here because I believe in giving the best education to our children. So wherever that is, we have a responsibility to do that. And things that I hear from parents, when you're doing your outreach, there has to be a survey response. We need to find out why they left. And because if we're not able to persuade them back, we now know they left because A, B, or C. One of the main things that I hear is that they don't feel their children are safe. So there's safety issues that become a problem, or that the class teacher-student ratio is too high. They need to be in a smaller environment. We may not be a fit for everyone, but we certainly can start to recognize what those issues are and start to develop strategies that will not make leaving this district attractive somewhere else. But at least we know we have a plan, and we know that we're doing something other than just taking these and saying, no, they're building, you know. Because I'm telling you, thank goodness, I'm giving Mr. Elizondo very much credit here. Because of his good budgeting, we're not looking like Northeast ISD right now. We're not looking like SAISD right now, who are hurting because they overplanned. They thought their enrollment would be so much higher. We're blessed right now. So we have an opportunity to do these things that I don't think the other districts are doing. I commend what you're doing now as the starting point of what we need to do, and why I'll bring this question up until I know that we have an action plan in place.
Certainly.
Ms. Pichelle.
Mr. Linscomb, would you please repeat? I wrote down Walsham Road, but you mentioned another idea
of Walsham and idea Judson.
Judson. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next we'll move on to item 6G, report on title funding. Mr. Macias.
Yes, I had a conversation a couple of months ago. Man, time just flies, I tell you. It was with Ms. Barra and Ms. Davis. Am I right? It was with you, right? You were part of that call, Ms. Davis? Okay, good. The older you get, you lose your memory too a little bit. So the question that I asked was about title funding allocation specific to programs and how we were measuring its effectiveness, which is usual. That's a question that's always been asked. But I recently asked about where we were allocating funds to what we previously had a backpack program. I can't remember what the name of it, but where we had funds going to a backpack program. It was a substantial amount of money, in the hundreds of thousands. So I kind of followed up on what we were doing, because I know we're not buying books. We're not involved in that program any longer. So what's happening with that program? What are we doing with that money now? And I had expressed a wish that maybe those funds should go directly back into the classroom in terms of additional instructional aids, tutoring for our students, and I think Ms. Davis had sent a list that had outlined certain curriculum. I don't want to misspeak, so I'll give you an opportunity to address exactly what the allocation of funding went to, Ms. Barrett, Ms. Davis. But trying to make sure that we're being strategic even in that allocation so that we have some measurability in terms of where those dollars are spent. So I'll yield for a moment to hear a response what happened with that allocation of funding for that program.
Ms. Barra, I know you did research on
Yes.
that. If you'll proceed, please.
One of the things that we did, Mr. Macias, is we went ahead and gave you where we are with the allocation that we give each campus. And if I recall, when we had that conversation, I think some schools were concerned that they didn't have enough money for tutoring, to fund tutoring, and I think that was mainly your concern. So in this information that I submitted to you on Board Book, and one of the concerns that I shared with you is that schools do have funds, they don't use it they don't use it starting in September or October. And part of it, and this conversation that we had was done around November, December maybe, a lot of the tutoring happens like right in January. If you look at the page that's provided there, it's on page 246, you're going to be surprised at what the balance is for some of the campuses. And some of those campuses that have a high balance have been the very campuses that have been concerned about the tutoring. So you'll ask me, well, then why aren't you doing something about it? Or what are you doing about it? I know that's your next question, Mr. Macias.
Yes, I was going to ask that question.
And so here it is. I'm going to tell you that every month we give our principals a copy of their budget. Every month at every leaders meeting, we give it to them. And I pretty much leave them alone until around November, December. By December, and I've told them this before, I expect at least 50% of your budget to have been spent. And if they don't...
By when, 50%?
By December, at least 50%, because I understand that the other 50% will be used for tutoring or will be used for programs that they're going to have over the summer. So what they do, and I do send an email, because sometimes this may be off. And that's what they tell me. They said, Ms. Barra, because I'll do a phone call and then I'll do an email. And they'll say, Ms. Barra, that number is not correct. I have got several purchase requisitions in, and it's not balanced. So when I sent them the email, I copy Ms. Roddy, who is directing this program, because she's the one that gives me the balance here. And I tell the principals, respond to me and let Ms. Roddy see what you're telling me. And if that's correct, and if I can walk over to her office and address it, we will. And the majority of the time, it's because of the tutoring. Tutoring has not been started yet. They've set aside some money for busing. They've set aside some money to pay the tutors. So the money is spent. Now, will this money be lost if they don't spend it? No. We use some of that money to support learning programs over the summer. And then we also use it for professional development right before September that the campuses can use, because the grant goes from September to September. So the principals still have some flexibility there. And this, again, is only based on title. Now, the other complaint that I've heard is that Ms. Roddy always says no. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, Ms. Roddy, one of the things that Mr. Elizondo has made very clear is that we need to follow we need to be in compliance. And one of those requirements is that whatever program we're bringing forth, it needs to be on the campus improvement plan. And if it's in the campus improvement plan, it needed to have been in the needs assessment, okay? So a lot of the times, some campuses want to hear of a program when they went to TEPSA, or hear of a program when they went to another conference, and they're excited about it and they want to come and implement it. Well, first of all, is that a need? Did you identify that area of whatever program you want to bring in as a need? And if it's not a need, then can we look, and we've told them the campus improvement plan is a dynamic program, a dynamic document. And we can change it if we see that there's a need for our students to have whatever program it is we're looking at. And we are always open to listening to the principals and adjusting the campus improvement plan to address the areas that the principals want to work with.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. A couple of questions. And one is that this distribution of title funding, that's the balance. It's very interesting to see Kirby at number 1, where obviously I would feel there's a greater need to utilize those funding. I know Dr. Salinas would have used it all if she was still at Kirby.
Yes, we always, yeah, she always did.
But this,
yeah, her balance was always 0.
Well, this
or more.
This is, I have a couple of questions to follow up, but one being, we have a enormous amount of first-year principals. Yes. Principals that were probably not part of the campus improvement plans last year, or so they may not understand this element, so I don't know how the training is in supporting them, but certainly that would come to mind as, do they know?
Yes, yes, sir. We do provide training for the principals. Fortunately, about 3 years ago, we bought a program called Plan for Learning, which really makes it easy for every campus to have a unified campus improvement plan that we don't have to cut and paste anymore. And it makes it easier for us to really look at the different areas that need to be addressed. Ms. Roddy not only has a meeting with everyone, all the principals, and then she's met with the new principals individually. She also brings somebody from Region 20 to come in for additional help. And in the past, she has brought in people from Region 20 to help them look at the funds that they have and how they can spend it.
Well, I'm hopeful that perhaps as we go into the next year, that those principals that may be requesting tutoring get that allocation and ensure that it's part of the campus improvement plan naturally, because I believe that would be a very good usage of dollars that could help students.
I'm glad you said that, because today we had our meeting, and this meeting was planned like 3 months ago. It just so happened that it was today. But looking at our allocations for next year. And the one area that had the most new principals was elementary. And as we were discussing how to spend the money in title funds, I believe Dr. Cantu did ask for some programs for the new principals, because we want to make sure that we have a very focused and direct approach to working with our new principals, whether it be online, whether it be through books, whether it be bringing in other people. And Ms. Davis is working very closely to looking at the various programs out there to make sure that we do provide some training for our principals, especially our novice principals.
Well, and then my other question in relation to this whole discussion, I'm still not clear as to where we reallocated those funds that were earmarked for the backpack program, where they went, because obviously we didn't use the money for that. So we had, like I said, 300, 400,000, I believe, that was now put back in. So I would have imagined there should have been an opportunity for principals to say, oh, wait, we got 400,000 more to add. Did they go to Ms. Roddy and say, I need some allocation of funding? Or if we didn't, what did we do with that money? Where did we spend it?
To not throw Dr. Fields under the bus, and blame all the construction. Dr. Fields, I'm not doing that. I will tell you that one of the things that Ms. Davis is looking at is what can we provide, since we have all this extra monies that we got from the backpack program. One of the areas that, since she got here in December, has been really talking about is a literacy program for our students.
Literacy program?
Literacy. While Dr. Cantu has expressed an interest in writing, Ms. Davis has really wanted to look into writing as one of the components. And because we have science camps in all of our schools, one of the things that Ms. Davis would like to do is embed science, social studies, writing, and all the core areas into the writing process so that our students are all familiar and ready when they start back at school. That's where a lot of our monies went this year.
So it went to literacy program, writing, science camp, social studies, writing, but what does that mean? I mean, does it mean we bought pencils for everybody? I mean, what does that really mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Some of the things that we're looking at, and I think that when you ask on the comparison of the programs, you're able to see the programs that we have put in place. But some of the things that we have bought, Chromebooks for our students.
Chromebooks?
Yes, Chromebooks for our students. Now the science program brings their own technology, so we don't need to provide it for our students, where they're able to create robots and do all that starting from scratch. But for the science, for the writing literacy, we are buying Chromebooks for the students. Again, because we can't have literacy camps at every campus, we have identified 3 hubs around the district where we've allotted or we've identified which schools go to what campus to work on those literacy program.
Well, and I will say that the reason why it's on the agenda is so that I can hear from my colleagues in regards to what their sentiments are. But writing is absolutely critical. Reading, so is math. I mean, they're all very critical in the development of our children. But not every child will have an issue with writing. I mean, they'll get better at it. But when we talk about the elements of adding instructional aids and tutors through campuses, it's because we want to identify where there are weaknesses. If that weakness is in reading, the Chromebooks, if they can be utilized for that, then you have multiple options to implement when you look at a child's profile to see what can we do to help them. I'm not sure how Chromebooks, if we ended up getting the quantity or if they're being used every day, how that concerns me a little bit in terms of how we're out implementing that.
Let's look at the iStation program.
iStation?
Okay, iStation.
Okay.
Because they can use that on the Chromebook. Once a student takes the initial test, on that test, they're able to identify which areas they're weak in. The program then provides different lessons for the students to work, starting from the area where they show their deficiency in, and slowly move them up. They can do that through the Chromebook, okay? Now, I'm not saying that should be the program to go with, but that is one of the areas. Now, when I said writing earlier, as a district, writing was our lowest area. I'm not going to say that that's the only area, but we want to incorporate writing into the literacy program, because through the literacy, we're not only focusing on writing, but we're also focusing on different areas where we also showed some areas of needing assistance.
Okay. Obviously, there are multiple needs. Academics is clearly one of them. One other area that I think could be helpful. I know that this year at Elof Elementary, and I believe there may be another, there is that program for parental engagement and college readiness, which I think deserves an assessment. We need to see how important that program can be, but I think it could make a difference. But that's really geared at parent engagement, because we know we can do a lot with our children, our students, but parents need to be part of the process in some way. And in addition to that, using title funds potentially for addressing social emotional issues and stepping it up on title campuses where we know there's needs for our children and families.
Title IV is dealing specifically with that, and that is school safety. That's new. It came into effect last year, and when we first received it, I sent out the pre-qualification requirements to every principal, and I asked them, here's new Title IV grants that just came out. It deals with social emotional, it deals with school safety, it deals with programs that will address school safety as a whole for the students. And everyone, and I send it to the principals, every principal's K-12, and I send it to the directors in case they also had some ideas to bring in. They all brought it in. Ms. Roddy then convened a group of, a team to look at all these areas. And from there, they came up with some ideas. Today, we found out that we still have some monies left. And of course, Dr. Cantu jumped on it because there were some areas for STEM. So she says, I can use some monies of that for STEM. But we're also looking at the social emotional component because we realize that's a big part, and we've noticed a rise from the incident reports that we receive from campuses on students needing that support.
I just have my last comment, and I'll yield. Thank you for taking my questions. The efficiency and evaluation of title money, are we ensuring, and how, that we are utilizing every dollar effectively? Because I'll tell you why I say that. When you see these dollars sitting here at the end, I get the feeling that there's going to be a mad rush to utilize these dollars, and sometimes when you're rushing to use money, you may not be using it as effectively. So the question is back to, how are we ensuring we're effectively using these dollars to get what we need?
When we had this meeting today, Mr. Elizondo was there with two of his directors, and that was his number one question. Why are we waiting so long to spend some of these monies? Because this money needs to be spent for, this money that was allocated for this year needs to be spent on the students this year. And when we work with principals, that is the number one thing that we talk to them about, because that is how that's why Title I was funded, created, to help our students that need assistance. The other part to that is that we do have certain places where we check with our principals, especially on the areas, we go in ourselves, and if we see that there's an area that they're not addressing and they have funds, we provide that assistance for them as well.
Finished? Okay, thank you. Thank you for providing this information. I also spoke with Mr. Macias, I guess a couple months back, and we talked about campus needs assessment. And so this brought back a lot of memories for me. I've only worked at Title I campuses, so I like that because you are allotted some extra monies to use for students. So when do we already have our spending cutoff date for, and what day is that?
It was back in April when we had it cut off.
April.
I don't know the exact name, the exact date, Dr. Salinas, but it was, we always cut off all of our funds.
Correct.
And we have different cutoffs for local funds, federal funds.
Correct.
And for different types of items. But it was in the April timeframe. March, some of them cut off in March, and some of them are cutting off now. And there are some that cut off in May as well. It just depends, like things like for awards and things like that we don't know. The schools don't know exactly what kids are going to get awards quite yet. Things, so we allow them different times for different types of expenditures. If there are things out of the inventory, out of our warehouse,
sure,
we allow more time. But to give you specifics about the federal programs, I'd have to go back to pull our documentation.
So do you know the
I can have
cutoff
those
date?
dates for you.
Because if the cutoff date is before 4/19, we're already, these monies aren't going to be spent anymore.
Well,
unless they've allocated for tutoring.
That's it.
Correct.
They are salaries for the most part.
Okay, salaries are. So these numbers include salaries that are left?
For some of the teachers, for the tutoring, and for.
Oh, okay, but not salaries for teachers.
No.
Not like a Title I
No,
teacher.
no.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It's salaries.
And
for
then
tutoring.
I remember we used to have to turn in budget, or what are you going to use your money for? And we had to turn it in for Miss Roddy. That was usually due, what I remember, in February or March. Was that still the case?
Well, no. Now we're doing it now until they finish their campus needs assessment.
Okay, so that's going on right now?
That's going on right now,
And
yes,
so
ma'am.
when is that due?
I don't have the due dates right now.
Okay, May, maybe?
Possibly, yes.
So I remember thinking, wow, we had to plan our budget and we hadn't done our campus, our CNA yet. And then we have to do our CIP, and it was very confusing, and especially if you're a first-year principal. And so I'm glad that we're changing the timeline. I'm glad that now we're doing the campus needs assessment. But it's concerning that we don't have all of our money spent. And even though we tell them and we give them a budget every month, that's not enough. But their CIP should determine what they're spending it on. And like you said, just like the DIP, so Mr. Macias is talking about the backpack program, and as you're talking, I'm going, well, did we change the DIP? Did we change the DIP? Because it has to match the DIP. And I don't know. But those are all things that have to be done. And then I also heard, and I don't know if this is true, that we're supposed to be able to spend the Title I funds beginning September 1st, but that they were not allowed to spend them or did not have access to them until almost October or mid-October this year. And that's what I heard. And that then sets us back, and it sets principals back and kids.
Okay, can I address that? Yes, that's what I heard also. But here's the other thing that I heard, that if a campus wanted to spend it, they were allowed to spend it. And because they were looking at all the funds and all that, they weren't dropped in until October 1st of November. But when I talked to Mr. Elizondo back then, he said none of the schools were ever denied not spending the money.
Maybe not for Mr. Elizondo.
I'm not exactly sure,
Okay.
but I will tell you this, and Ms. Barrett's correct. Sometimes, if there's a problem in getting those documents from a department so that we can enter them into the computer system, we know that schools at the beginning of the year, we know that everybody's going to get an allocation. So if they're going to spend funds, we do not allow them to spend them, because if they want to enter requisitions, and we know that everybody's going to get $30,000, $40,000, and they want to enter, smaller requisitions, we'll let them go ahead and start, even though we'll just raise. Excuse me. In our finance system, there are flags that tells every expenditure budget code whether or not you can charge against that code, and there's warnings, like a warning, a yes, a fatal, or a no. And so we will raise those flags if somebody says we need to spend these monies and they're not in the system yet for some reason. Then we'll say, okay, we'll set them all to just warnings so people can start entering their requisitions. And then once the budgets go in there, then we'll just make sure that everything's okay.
Okay. I think it's important, if we're going to ask principals to meet deadlines, we need to make
to
sure
do this.
that federal programs and federal monies are available September 1st. Because we know that September 1st is coming, we already know. And if we have to plan a budget based on our campus needs assessment, and I understand you have to put it in the different categories, professional development, instructional materials, reading materials, but all of that should be done way before.
And I'll tell you, and I don't want to say this is the answer, but I would have to go back and check. Sometimes when I'm saying that departments don't give us things, because what happens, TEA is backlogged on their approvals, so they don't give us their signature on the application. So there's an application process, as you know. We have to submit it to TA, they review it, and if there are any negotiations that they enter into with the district because they didn't like the way something was written, or they're not sure about the way something was written, then they will not give us that stamp date.
Correct.
And we will not allow anybody to spend those monies until TA has stamped that application saying it's approved, you can go ahead and spend.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's what happened, but that has
Right, because that doesn't
happened in
happen
the
all the
past.
time, right, that is correct.
Yeah.
And then, my last comment, do we know if all the 1% was spent on parent involvement that's required with all these funds that are left here?
Yes, they have been.
The parent
That's one thing
involvement
that Ms.
portion
Roddy
was
does
spent?
take care of, yes.
Okay, that's good. And then on Plan for Learning, are we also utilizing the budget portion?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And for transportation, my last comment, this used to bother me a lot, and I'm hoping we've changed it. Are schools still charged for transportation for tutoring based on the distance they are from the bus barn? I would have to pay more for my buses than Judson High School did. Is that still happening, or did we change that?
Dr. Fields?
Yes, ma'am, that's absolutely correct. It's
And
by
it's
mileage.
still happening, so
Yes,
Kirby
ma'am.
has to pay more because they're further away from the bus barn?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you. You hit a number of my comments on the head already. Having worked in the schools, having been on campus improvement committees, having been on district improvement committee, and working with the campus CIPs, I know much of that is true. It is extremely hard to set a budget for your school in May, which is when your campus improvement plan is required to come in, when you don't have scores, so you can't do a campus needs assessment because you don't know what your scores are going to say. Right?
true. No, you're
It's true.
right.
And that we have to do it before the district improvement plan is completed, which
We're changing those dates.
thank you, because the district improvement plan should, also drive the campus improvement plan. And then not knowing how much money you're going to have to allocate to everything, having to prioritize where you're going to intervene is a huge issue. So, these are all problems that our principals are having to deal with, and our new principals don't understand necessarily what these issues are going to be. And then when you don't get your money at the beginning of the year, and you have to cut off spending it in April, makes it very difficult because you don't even have a first round of testing scores back to see if there's something else that you need to be doing to tweak your plan for that second round of testing. And then the other thing that was always very frustrating when we were looking at budget is that we didn't get transportation charges until much later. So a lot of this budget here is reflecting transportation charges for tutoring that hasn't come out yet. And so I know that these are not truly accurate numbers of what has been spent and what has not been spent. So, if we could do a little bit better job on making sure that our principals are supported and making sure that their budgets are accurate and that the funds are there, that would really, truly help.
And I will tell you along those lines, Ms. Kenoyer, that Ms. Roddy and Ms. Hernandez, who works with her, they do visit the campuses for that very reason to see, okay, how is it that we can help you to spend these funds? And they also visit the tutoring sites to make sure that they're adhering to the smaller numbers, and if they see that they have larger numbers in tutoring, they try to guide them. But you're right, we do need to do a better job with our new principals.
Ms. Bichelle?
Dr. Montoya, I'd like to ask Dr. Fields a question, please.
Are you ready to answer? No, go ahead. Go ahead and ask him. Go ahead, Dr.
Yes, sir. I don't necessarily like that connotation. Dr. Fields, it doesn't seem to be fair the way the transportation is handled. Is there a better way that money could, is there a better way to handle the transportation situation to make it more equitable? I didn't know about that.
Well, in terms of, we could change it for tutoring, but typically, we are talking about tutoring, but typically when they charge by mileage. And because you're further away from where the bus barn is, you pay more for mileage. It's the same way if they were to go on a field trip or a game to Smithson Valley or wherever we used to travel to. Wagner would we would get charged for mileage to come from Wagner to Rutledge. Judson walks out the back door to go to their game. It's just the way that we charge the buses for mileage. We could look into that and see if there's another way to do it, but we do that all the way around.
Door to door?
One of the recommendations 5 years ago was to possibly have the buses that pick up for Kirby just reroute back to pick up for tutoring because they're already out there delivering kids home from the regular route.
I know that's what we used to do at Wagner as well. The same bus drivers that I would see coming around would stay on that side of the district and then.
Correct. So maybe that's something we can consider.
Yes, ma'am.
To save money.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, to save the schools that are further away from the bus barn.
I would agree.
Or move some bus barns over to each side of the district.
That's been thought about as
That's
well.
another good one.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Messier.
I didn't even know about the bus barn. That's kind of interesting stuff. But anyway, I do believe that we always should try to work towards equity and giving, not burdening campuses like Kirby and that obviously need resources. So if they're spending more on transportation because of their location, I mean, obviously we need to do something about that. My last point is I just wanted to request, because I still wasn't clear, and just send it to us in an email, where the allocation on the backpack funds were. I understand we bought Chromebooks, but I don't know if we bought $400,000 worth of Chromebooks. So I would like to know exactly where those funds went, so I have a better understanding.
I will have that for you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6H, discussion of summer programs. Mr. Macias.
Rich just give me that look. Anyway, I put this on the agenda because I wanted to just get a report from administration as to what our summer program was looking like this year and what it was looking like the previous year in terms of where we're headed. It is my personal belief that we probably need to put more resources into programs that help students that are economically disadvantaged. And so I just wanted to kind of get an idea of where we are.
I will have Ms. Grady, who is our Executive Director for Special Programs. She's in charge of all of our summer programs. I did include in your packet some of the information of the programs that we had last year and those that we have this year. One of the things that we did look at, and she's been meeting with all the departments from transportation, nutrition, and the different directors that are having programs. And she's been trying to allocate and make sure that they're placed at the right campus. So she'll be able to give you more detailed information.
And my secondary question will be on the PrEP program. I understand it's a program we had in collaboration with UTSA that we will no longer be involved in, and so I wanted some discussion. Would Ms. Roddy be able to address that?
No, that would be me.
Okay, well, we'll have this first. Go ahead.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Montoya, Dr. Salinas. I prepared a report primarily of the instructional programs. My role in summer school is to coordinate the efforts from all the different departments to provide the instructional programs. And so I've given you a comparison list of programs showing locations from last year versus this year, along with the anticipated enrollment for this year and the actual enrollment from last year. I've divided that into two documents, as you can see. We have required programs, and those are programs that the state requires or board policy requires, such as tuition base. So all of the programs on that first document, we really have to provide the resources and the locations for those summer programs. Now, in addition to the required programs, we're able to offer our enrichment programs, and those vary based on the needs of the campuses and the allocations as well as funding. So you're looking at programs such as the optional flexible school day program, that's our evening high school, the EOC prep camp, JECA's, the pre-AP, as well as the JISD pre-AP calculus program, TSI Summer Bridge, etc.
I appreciate the information. I did note that, and it was just on 2 pages, and so I was thinking, okay. But I would like to see that we have programs at every campus that would need to address their student populations. Earlier, we did have the HOA presidents from 3 neighborhoods that are in my district, and we've had meetings where I've met with the leadership of HOAs in my community, and there has truly been a rise of criminal activity and just trespassing and so on that summer programs could potentially help address. And so when I'm looking at schools like Elof and Converse and Spring Meadow, I mean, these are campuses that I know would really benefit. And so are there local programs that might be occurring that are not on this distribution? I'll tell you, the gentleman who was the president of the Fields of Dover, we helped facilitate a program, a basketball program at Converse last year. And so I would like to see more emphasis on building those type of collaboratives where we're offering resources. We're not having to spend a lot of money. They're bringing all the manpower, and they're helping serve our kids and doing something active. In addition the duration of the program would be nice in terms of if it's a week, if it's 2 weeks, if it's the whole summer. I don't know if I'm missing it on here, but I don't see that information. I see students
No.
served.
Yeah.
But that would be helpful because now we're trying to determine what that time frame looks like in offering support. And I can tell you areas like Kirby and Park Village and Hartman could probably really use a program that makes education fun in those communities. Parents would probably really rely on that. So this is not a comprehensive list of our summer programming.
It's not. These are the instructional programs. We do have summer camps, athletic camps. We also have Boys and Girls Club program as well that's at Metzger Middle School this year. And last year, as you are aware of, we did have that homeowners association group. I don't remember the name. We made provisions for that group at Converse last summer.
Yes,
and that was
I
a good
appreciate that.
program as well.
It
And we hope that we can accommodate the group. I think this year, as we look at the numbers on this, on these documents, some of the, I guess, low participation activities at each of the campuses is due to the renovations that have to take place. And so the facilities departments, they were very accommodating because we have a lot of renovations that are occurring. And so they've just worked with the various campuses to try to meet the needs. We just have some campuses where, because of safety and those renovations, we're just not able to offer as much as we would like. But in the past, we've allowed those campuses, especially our title campuses that have funds, to provide those learning projects and learning programs. It's just difficult because of the renovations this year.
Well, and I can definitely understand that. What I'd like to do is when we do receive a comprehensive list of the facilities and the programs tied to those facilities, we'll be able to say asterisk bond project or insurance project, so that the next year we put a program or so there, and we can say we have a full summer program that's invigorating for our kids. That's what I probably would like to see in terms of what we're addressing as we look at our partnerships for this. And I guess the other part of this is that we may be missing out on opportunities to enable our campuses to bring partners. So that's why this is important in terms of trying to do that. I had one last point and it escaped me right now, but essentially this is a good start. We just need to do a little more in terms of really getting a pulse of where we are. Sure. And then just trying to really bring the depth of programs. Again, I have questions about prep, but I'm going to wait until
Mr. Macias, I can go ahead and add to what Ms. Roddy, I'm sorry, no, Ms. Roddy sent me another, no, I was thinking, Ms. Roddy did send me another list, not Ms. Grady. Ms. Roddy sent me another list of all the programs that we have this summer, and I can provide that to you. That one does have a start and end date, and then the times during the day, and it includes programs like STEM Foundation, TSI Summer Bridge, all those other programs. I thought when you asked that question, you only meant the instructional programs that we had last year and what we had this year.
No, I would like to build a program that really engages or gives opportunity for engagement for our students during the summer, and then obviously start to look at that menu of summer programs, and then elevate that to meet certain academic needs potentially. I mean, there's different ways to learn. So once we understand what we have, we can insert what we need. And at this point, I do not know what we have. So that's going to be very important. But I do expect that we're increasing, as our economically disadvantaged population increases, I expect that we increase our efforts during the summer. So, thank you.
I agree with you.
We can provide that comprehensive list for you. We do have one that we are using with our different campuses and coordinators. So.
If I'm not, I'm correct, Dr. Fields, you are the one that does most of the summer programs for the kids?
No, sir. What we do is we coordinate the facilities. I would say, though, with athletics, there's a lot of programs that Ms. Grady briefly spoke to. We've got open weight room, open gym, basketball, volleyball, tennis camps. There's a host of things that we have throughout the summer as well. I'd also say that I heard your statement, Mr. Macias, when you said that if we don't use them this year, then we need to use them next year. But there are some campuses that won't be available this year or next year. Because we're doing roofs this year, but next year we'll be putting in a new gym or an administrative area, or in Kitty Hawk's case, we're going to be turning off the power this summer, but building almost an entirely new campus next summer. So there'll be a few that we just can't get to.
I understand that, and my hope was that we would find alternative campuses.
And that's exactly what we did this year. We weren't able to put them on as many campuses, but we put almost the same number of programs on Metzger and Veterans Memorial. So there's going to be a lot more students in a consolidated area, but I would say that the only programs that we're truly not having this year that we had last year was our some of our secondary ESL programs or middle school ESL programs. And they're using this time this summer to beef up on their training, so they're able to come back next year and provide what they consider better services. So,
I know there's a cost factor for all these programs, but is there any way possible to get these cost factors down so these people can afford it?
well, yes, sir. I would tell you that the gentlemen that were here earlier, I think when they spoke about the San Antonio Parks and Recreation program that we used to have.
Favored.
Exactly. And we had some issues with that particular program.
Yes, we have.
That led to Dr. Montoya and I sitting down saying, it's not advantageous for the district to continue to invite them back. It was difficult for us to finish getting the stuff done before school started again. The students that were coming to the campuses weren't primarily from the Judson Independent School District, although we did service a lot of students from JISD. There was a lot of students coming from outside as well. We haven't been able to increase the capacity of Boys and Girls Club as much this year because I have to admit, Ms. Barra and Ms. Grady are correct. There is $136 million of infrastructure improvement that needs to be done within the district in a certain amount of time, or we're going to be held accountable for that. And we're really working at breakneck speed to just get it over with. I know we're just trying to rip the Band-Aid off, get it done, and then move on. So maybe that was a bad analogy, but we are. Yes, sir.
Yes, and naturally, again, from a strategic standpoint, we start looking at partnerships where we can partner with a nonprofit to say, let's host a program. We just want to make sure that the needs of our children are met and that we have them doing something that's positive for either character development or academics or whatever it might be that I think there might be room for. And so it has to be part of our Judson strategy to really help that disconnect over the summer. So the other question I had was in relation to STEM. And specifically, I understand that we are not going to be involved in the STEM program, or not STEM, prep program this year. What happened? This would have been our fourth year, I think, with it, so we stepped out. What was the situation with prep?
Yes, Mr. Macias, you are correct. We've had a partnership with UTSA and the P16 initiatives, and every year they offered a prep program that was focused on STEM. And one of the things that changed for this summer without involving the school districts is that they increased the fees for the students by $200. So the allocation that we had a decision to make. We either continued to and proceed with the allocation and the UTSA, but that would reduce the number of students that participated to 40 students. So in an effort to use the money and extend more opportunity for students, we are seeking, we have partnered with Randolph Air Force Base and Boysville, and we're going to serve approximately 250 students with that allocation for a one-week camp. We do have industry partners that we've partnered up so that students can also work side by side with industry partners. Students are going to attend the Mays Family Scouting Ranch. We have Apple doing coding for students. We also have robotic activities and hands-on STEM activities. So instead of serving less students, we believe that it was important to open it up to more students and partner up with industry. And so that is the plan. We chose not to pay the additional $200 that they increased and use it so that we could have more students participate.
That sounds rational. I guess my only thought on the programming reallocation here is that the prep program is, I believe, a 6-week program, and so it engaged students over a duration of time. 1 week is just not, it's not a significant amount of time. I'm happy there's some replacement in that. And I wonder how many of the students, let me backtrack. I have a lot of thoughts in my head here. But one in particular is that we have parents and kids that are already going through prep. And as you know, there's prep 2, prep 3, prep 4, and so on. I wonder how many of them were obviously not supported. They were expecting to go to prep 3 or prep 4. I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity to examine what that population looks like and even perhaps consider supporting it in some way, subsidizing some portion of it to help them if they're going to continue in the program. Not new students, because I don't believe we should be paying $500 per student, but just helping those that are in that year 3 or year 4 of the program to get that certificate, because I think there's a certificate that's awarded after the 3rd or 4th year. But I don't know what that looks like. If it's a minimal amount of students, I mean, I would entertain looking at that and bringing it before my colleagues to discuss. But I don't know. So, Dr. Montoya, is that something we could probably just determine?
Why don't we do a little research here in the next few days to see who's in those categories and what that cost would be, and then we can bring it back and see if it's feasible to continue that way on that group. Obviously not new ones, but.
And I would say those that are in year 3 or 4, not even year 2, because it's the beginning, but just to be consistent with the fact that we've phased out things, and those parents that were engaged, they probably feel like we just left them holding the bag. I mean, their kids are in their 3rd year of the program. So just a thought. But that is horrible news by UTSA to change the without, because we were really rolling. I know the kids that were coming out and the parents were very excited about that program, and it's done some good things. So naturally, we need to find a replacement. So that the 1 week is a start, but we certainly have the ability to look for something that might be longer.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6I, update on board advisory committees. Does anyone have any updates? Ms. Canoyer.
The curriculum committee is going gangbusters. Thank you, Ms. Davis. It's a very active and involved committee. Currently looking at embedding in our curriculum guides for our teachers, looking at making sure the support is there for our new teachers, new to the district, or new to a campus, or new to a grade level, or new to a subject. Yesterday I came and told a group of teachers, greeted a group of teachers who were here to give feedback on the year at a glance guides. All the specialists were here, and a number of teachers had come to review those and give feedback on changes in pacing and looking at order that units happen. And I'm really appreciative of all those teachers who took their own personal time to come. And so I'm very excited about that committee. Also, I'm excited about our finance committee. It's a very small group, but very active. And of course, with budget going on now, lots to do. I invite you to come join us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, I'll move on to item 6J. Any updates on board training, conferences, events, and consider future items from board members? Ms. Eaton. Ms. Rodriguez.
The weekend of April the 7th, attended the National School Board Association Conference. It was very inspiring. It was, I took a lot away from it, and I think in particular, I was drawn to the equity statement that that association has put together, and plan on taking a closer look at that and seeing how I can implement that in my work.
Thank you. Ms. Pichelle?
I have not attended any trainings or conferences, but an event that I did attend was an invitation that we all received from Mr. Galloway at Candlewood, the Samaritan's Feet, and it was such a rewarding experience. It was beautiful. It really, really was. And so in light of that, I was wondering if for the month of May, could it be a consideration, Dr. Montoya, that we honor the gentleman who put on that event, and we give them a plaque or let them know how grateful we are that
I think it's
that number of kids? And I'd like to know what was the final number of students who received new shoes?
I think it was around 480.
Wow.
And I think you may be referring to Mr. Graham Gibbs.
Sir, I just can't remember his name.
Why don't we, Mr. Linscomb, let's go ahead and invite him and give him some kind of presentation, because anybody that can round up 480 pairs of new shoes to help people, that's good.
Yes, sir. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Walmart as well. There was a partnership.
Maybe one of their
because they were the
people.
volunteers.
Yes, so maybe a representative from each one or something.
Yes, sir.
For May's board meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Macias?
No updates on advisory, that's what we're talking about.
No, sir, we're on the next item.
Darn it, man, I stepped out for 2
Sorry,
seconds.
we moved on.
We're on events and conferences.
I had a great opportunity to attend the National School Board Association Conference with Ms. Rodriguez, and I think we missed each other, but we knew that we were there in different areas. So a phenomenal session and a great opportunity to meet with colleagues from across the country. So that's all I have for right now.
Ms. Knoyer?
I'm always trying to go to lots of events. You know that. I'm trying to be out there and appreciate all the invitations from the campuses who've said, come by, stop and see this wonderful thing that we're doing, because I think it's important that the board acknowledge the hard work that our teachers and staff are doing, and I always want to highlight that. One of the things I did highlight was the Samaritan's Feet. I actually went live on Facebook from that event, and it's had almost 11,000 views, my little face. So we're getting some publicity from that. It's probably people involved at Candlewood and other teachers who've looked at it, but I think that's a great way to highlight some of the things that we're doing, and I appreciate so much our social worker from Candlewood who was instrumental in making sure that that happened for those kids. And if you could have only seen the smiles on their faces, and I alternated between a big old grin on my face and being teary, so it was a great event. And I'm looking forward to all the wonderful things that are going to be happening as we approach into the year. I know we get busy, busy, busy. Scholarship Squad's coming up. Teacher Grant is coming up. I'm excited.
Thank you. Mr. LaFoille?
I also went to Candlewood. I'm a tough old bird. I don't cry much, but I cried there. There was a little girl sitting there getting a pair of shoes after that gentleman had taken her old shoes off, washed her feet, dried them off, and put them on, and she was crying, and I was crying right along with her. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Ms. Pichelle?
I forgot one more thing. As I was looking at the calendars in our board book, I noticed two events that are coming up in May, but one of them didn't have a time and the other one didn't have a venue. So I was just wondering when we were going to get something final. May the 3rd, the Honorary Volunteers Banquet at JECA, there's no time specified. And then on May the 15th, the celebration for the novice teachers, there is a time, but it doesn't have a venue. Thank you.
You can update the calendar and get it to you here in a few days, so
Okay, we will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. 7A, Section 551.074, discussing personnel. 7B, Section 551.074, discussing cabinet-level personnel. And 7C, Section 551.071, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to superintendent search process. And the time is 9:41.